Welcome to this webinar about postgraduate funding opportunities for the 2015-16 academic year. My name is Donald Caviston. I work at the Graduate School at King's College London, providing advice and support for postgraduate students looking for funding at King's. So let's start by looking at Masters funding schemes this year. We have a range of schemes. The King's Masters Support Scheme is offering up to 273 new awards of £10,000 and will be available to students looking to pursue master's study in 2015. These awards are part of a one-off widening participation scheme and therefore are only open to final year undergraduate students from the UK and EU who paid tuition fees at the higher rate of up to £9,000 and who meet the eligibility criteria. Applications will open in mid-February, but you can check to see if you meet the criteria now via our Master's Degree Funding Opportunities page. There will also be 20 merit scholarships for international non-UK and EU fee-paying students, the King's President's Scholarships. Each of these is worth £10,000 and offered for any postgraduate taught programmes of study. Applications must be submitted by the 31st of March at 5 o'clock GMT. Check your eligibility and apply now via our Master's Degree Funding Opportunities page. We're also running the King's India Masters Scholarship, each worth £5,000 towards your tuition fees. These are being offered to Indian applicants who are applying for one of the eligible full-time master's programmes. Again, you'll find the full list of programmes and eligibility criteria on the same page as the other schemes. Applications must also be submitted by the 31st of March at 5 o'clock GMT. Your department or faculty may also have awards of varying sizes available for master's students. These are generally awarded for academic merit or potential, or there may also be funding available from international organisations or governments. Moving on to research degree opportunities. Funding comes from a lot of different sources at PhD or research degree level. This might be from an industrial sponsor, funding from a government agency if you're an international student, or Research Council funding for UK and EU students, which could mean applying through a doctoral training centre. There is also funding available for students who are resident in the country of one of our eligible partner universities, University of Hong Kong, National University of Singapore, and University of Sao Paulo, to undertake a joint PhD programme. For details of different funding schemes across the university, please visit our postgraduate funding pages or departmental funding pages, where you'll find lots of information about different schemes that might be open to you. So, now that you know a bit more about where to find possible sources of funding at King's, we'll move on to some key things to check before applying for funding. Finally, we'll also go over some of the most frequently asked questions that we get here at the Graduate School. So here's our checklist before applying. Do you meet the eligibility criteria for this scheme? You don't want to go through the effort of completing a good application only to find you aren't eligible. Read the criteria first, and if you're still unsure whether you meet the criteria, get in touch with us at the Graduate School or the specified contact for the scheme. Have you followed the funding application procedure? There may be a separate funding application form to complete in addition to your admissions application, or you may be required to submit additional documentation, i.e. showing financial need or an additional reference. When is the deadline? These are absolute, and late submissions will generally not be accepted. For most schemes, the deadline really is final. Illness and IT problems will generally not be accepted as reasons for late application. Have you submitted your admissions application, including any supporting documents requested by admissions? Again, this might sound obvious, but if a student's admissions application has not been submitted or is considered incomplete, since it's missing any supporting documents, such as your transcript or degree certificate, then you may be deemed ineligible for consideration. Have you informed referees about any deadlines in good time? Whether it's for your admissions application or additional references required for certain funding schemes, make sure you give any referees plenty of notice. We'd suggest a minimum of 3 weeks, more so if there are any holiday periods immediately beforehand, so that they have time to complete a satisfactory reference for you. As with the point above, if your references for your admissions application have not been submitted by the stated deadline for the funding scheme, this may mean that we would no longer be able to consider you for an award. Are there any English language requirements that need to be completed? If you have not been taught in English for your education to date, or to satisfy visa requirements from the UK Borders Agency, you may be asked to provide evidence of meeting certain minimum English language requirements. Remember to check the guidelines of any schemes to which you are applying. Moving on to our frequently asked questions. 1. Do I need to have received an offer of admissions to apply? Well, it depends from scheme to scheme, but for the majority of scholarships, you do not need to have received an offer in order to be eligible, but you must have submitted a complete admissions application. I'm not sure what my fee status will be. Your fee status will be checked and verified by the admissions team handling your application once it has been submitted. This will normally be based on your country of permanent residence or domicile, rather than whether or not you hold a UK or EU passport. Can I apply for funding for more than one master's programme? Funding applications are generally for specific programmes, and awards cannot be transferred. If you're applying for multiple programmes, you may need to submit one funding application per degree programme. Again, best to check the guidelines. Will I be informed of the outcome of my funding application? If you have submitted a separate funding application form, you will normally be contacted, whatever the outcome of your application. However, if your application is based only on having submitted an admissions application, it is only generally possible to contact those who have been successful or reserve candidates. If I'm successful, can I defer an award to next year? If secured, funding cannot be deferred to another academic year, although students who have deferred a place from last year to this one are of course welcome to submit a new application for funding. Are there funding opportunities I can apply to after I start? Make sure that you have sufficient funding to support the duration of your programme before you start, as funding opportunities for current students are generally extremely limited. The King's Funding online Q&A session will be taking place on the 12th of February between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. GMT. Different members of staff, including Vaughan Robinson, head of the graduate school, will be available for discussion around topics concerning postgraduate funding. Please feel free to click on the link to register. If you are watching this webinar after the 12th of February, you can always contact us at the graduate school directly. The Graduate School support team are always on hand Monday to Friday 9 to 5 to help with any queries you might have relating to postgraduate funding. You can email us at graduateschool, all one word, at kcl.ac.uk or call us on +44 20 7848 4146 or tweet us. Our handle is at KCL Grad School. Thanks for listening, goodbye, and best of luck with your applications.